Looking to make some healthier habits this holiday season? Make sure to check out our Moving Through Midlife community over on Facebook, as we are doing a Planksgiving event where we are doing daily plank workouts. We will be doing an Advent for healthy, happy hips this holiday season, and then also have a sugar challenge, a 2-week sugar challenge that you might be interested in. Happy holidays!
Welcome to Raising Healthy Humans, a podcast created for busy moms, where you can easily find information on health and wellness for your family. Enjoy experts who share tips on how to raise children through each phase of life. Gather current information on nutrition and wellness, and listen to Courtney, a health coach, movement specialist, and founder of FormFit, an active and supportive community where she helps busy moms move more. On Raising Healthy Humans podcast, Courtney shares her personal life experiences, training, knowledge, and conversations with other health and wellness experts so you can raise healthy humans.
Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with a past client and friend of mine. As you know, many of you know, I have owned a stroller fitness company. At that time, it was a franchise, and she was one of my clients. She was also one of the moms in what we called the brunch bunch. So I have to tell you that we would, there were about, I believe it was 5 of us who would get together after class. Myself and one of the other instructors that worked with me were both pregnant. And we would, after class, go have brunch. And it was not every day, but it was always after one of our classes that was at a specific location. And we would always go out to brunch after that class. And that group of us, we called ourselves the Brunch Bunch. So she was part of that. She ended up moving to Texas. She was a doula, but now she is a licensed midwife. And she is going to talk today about her journey as a surrogate. She not only was a surrogate once, but she was a surrogate twice. So she's going to talk about both of those experiences, and I think it was truly fascinating to be able to listen to how she was giving of herself for someone else. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi, Susan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So I wanted to bring you on today because you have been a surrogate, right?
Yes.
Yes. So are you a midwife or a doula? You used to be a doula.
I am yes, I was a certified doula, and then I became a licensed midwife 7 years ago.
Okay.
And so I have my own midwifery practice now.
Okay. And I have known Susan for a while. She used to be one of my brunch bunch ladies years ago. Oh, the memories of the brunch bunch. So you have been a surrogate. So this month we're talking about giving and things like that. And I thought, really, how more could you give than to be a home for a baby while, in the womb and everything? It's just the sweetest thing ever. So how many?
I have been a surrogate, which is also known as a gestational carrier.
Okay.
There's a difference between a traditional and a gestational carrier. So it was not my DNA, my biology. It was all the intended parents. So I just like to clarify that because there's 2 different kinds.
Awesome.
But I was a surrogate 2 times for 2 different families. So I grew 2 little boys for 2 different families.
Okay. So, and that was one of the questions I was mentioning before we started recording, that my son had all these questions. And that was one of the questions he had is, does it use her egg and their like a man's sperm, or is it, so it was already, everything was done, so none of your DNA?
Correct. Yeah. Traditional surrogate will use her own eggs.
Okay.
And then a gestational surrogate is just the gestational carrier, the person who gestates the baby.
Okay. So how do people go about, like, are they then looking to find someone, like, is there something specific that they're looking for when they come to you? Or, you know, like if someone was thinking like, I want this woman to carry my children, is there any protocol where they're picking and choosing?
Yeah. So first of all, this is like a whole big, I hate to use the word industry because it's something so delicate and personal and incredible, but it is an industry. And so there are surrogacy agencies, but then people also do surrogacy journeys independently, which is what I did my first time. Okay. I met my intended parents through a mutual friend in the birth community, but there's the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, who has kind of like guidelines for the whole industry of what a surrogate should look like, what criteria she should meet. And then every fertility clinic, which there's thousands across the country, they will set their own guidelines. So some of them will stick directly to the ASRM guidelines, and then others will pick what they're most comfortable with. And some are a little bit more strict and some are a little bit more lenient. So most parents, what we call intended parents, those looking for a surrogate, are usually going to go by what their clinic's recommendations are, regardless if they go off on their own or if they go through an agency. They're going to look for a surrogate that fits their clinic's criteria for a woman who can carry the baby.
Okay. And what did you like when you decided to do this? Was this a personal, I mean, obviously it's a personal decision, but I mean, in the sense of, were these people you knew and had become friends with first? Or was this just something you were like, I love being pregnant, so I want to explain?
So yeah, I do love being pregnant.
I know and
that. And after 4 children, I felt like my family was done, but my 4th birth was by far my favorite. And obviously I have a love for birth, which is why I became a doula and then a midwife. And I had a beautiful home birth with my 4th baby that I loved. And I would have done that day a million times again, but I was not going to have a million times more babies. So there was kind of like this, I don't know, like this feeling like, where am I going? What's going to happen from here? I don't really know, because my family's complete, but I don't feel done having babies. And I really couldn't reconcile that for a while until I was watching a reality show, which, funny enough, it was a reality show that, which, if you know me well, you know it's not funny, because that's all I watch is reality TV. Probably because my life is so serious in every other way. And so it was a reality show. The main character, main person on there, she it was Julia Rancic. She's like a host or whatever. Okay. Anyway, so she had cancer, and she had to store her embryos and ended up needing to get a surrogate to carry her babies because it was not safe for her to do so. And so I just watched that all play out. I watched her try to have babies, go through fertility treatments, then get diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I just watched the show as really I really liked watching her story because it was just so real and there wasn't drama and all that. It was just this really real situation. And it just was kind of like an aha moment for me. Like, that's it. That's what I want to do. I can have another baby, but I can help somebody, but I don't have to keep it up mine. And that's really kind of how it started. And I just started researching. I had a baby at home still that I was nursing. I think Finn was maybe 6 months old. So I knew it wasn't going to be anytime soon. But I just started researching it, and that's kind of where it came from, was just a desire to birth again. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed pregnancy, and then seeing that I could do that, but also help somebody grow their family, was just really how it all started for me.
And it's amazing. I can't even imagine doing all of that. So when they're looking, like, are there certain things where when you now are carrying the baby, are there certain stipulations of things you can and can't do and any of that or is it based on you or the parents, or how does that all work?
Yeah, there's a little bit. I mean, basics, of course, like, we're not going to
Right.
drink or do drugs, things like that. But some intended parents, so you do have a contract. So it's not like something that's taken lightly. Like I said, it's a huge industry. There's attorneys that just focus on third party reproduction.
Oh, wow.
And so there is like a contract that you have to sign. You have legal representation and so do the parents. So there is a contract that talks about all the things you can and cannot do, and that it's not your baby, and that the intended parents are going to compensate you for whatever you guys have discussed previously. I didn't have anything crazy in either of my journeys or my contracts.
Okay.
My intended parents were really laid back, and they trusted me as a midwife to make good choices. But it's the overall, you're going to eat healthy and, follow your provider's guidelines, or what most contracts read. Travel is a little bit restricted as you get further into your third trimester. Of course, they want you close to a hospital. And then something a lot of people don't know is that every state has different surrogacy laws. So if I travel into Louisiana and deliver there early, that's a really big deal because Louisiana has terrible surrogacy laws. And so the parents getting parentage of their baby can be really hard. So it's always the goal to deliver in the state that the contract was written on, to ensure the parents get parentage of their baby. So that's really the biggest restriction, I think, was just my traveling towards the end of my pregnancy. But I have heard of intended parents who want the surrogate to eat organic the whole time, and they'll compensate the surrogate for that. We've had Jewish intended parents who wanted everything to be kosher, and they compensated for that.
Oh, wow.
The craziest thing I heard, and this was years ago, was a surrogate where the intended parents, the mom hated potato salad and did not want her to have potato salad, and that was in her contract. That's the craziest thing I think I've ever heard. Because like, I can understand a kosher kitchen, and and I can understand organic, and I can understand even like if somebody's a vegetarian, and the surrogate's willing to do all that, and the parents are willing to compensate that to make that an easy lifestyle. All that I get. The potato salad thing, as a potato salad lover, I did not understand. And I probably wouldn't have signed that contract.
Yeah, that is a little odd.
Yeah, I mean, and because what's
yeah.
So that's the craziest thing I've heard in a contract. I've seen some things along the way over the years, but I think that's probably the funniest thing that kind of just
yeah,
it's like, I don't know that I would sign that, even though it's really not that big of a deal. But
right.
It seems a little nitpicky, and I think I'd be a little bit worried about what my journey was going to look like.
Yeah. So speaking of your journey, like, is this something where you're meeting with them on a weekly basis, or how does that work throughout the pregnancy?
So they were both really different, because my first journey, they were local to me. I met them through a mutual friend or a mutual acquaintance in the birth community. So the intended mom came to pretty much every one of my midwife appointments. And then her husband came to some of the appointments throughout. And so, yeah, I saw her all the time. We usually would grab lunch or breakfast or whatever, depending on the time of day. And then they were there for, obviously, the birth. And then with my second set of intended parents, I used an agency that time.
Okay.
And there was a same-sex couple in Spain. So my fathers were far away, so there was no coming to anything.
Okay.
And so I would either Zoom in with them during an appointment, or I just record the heartbeat and send it to them and let them know everything was good afterwards. As a midwife, they were pretty laid back about it. I'm midwife, so they're just like, yeah, whatever. As long as everything's fine, just let us know. So they were very sweet. But we didn't have like a time that we met or anything, but we did have a Facebook message chat, and we still do to this day. He's 5 now. And we talked all the time, almost every single day in there. And now it's more like weekly that I communicate with them.
Okay.
But yeah, so most of the time you just at least want to give an update after an appointment. But since my mom with the first journey was with me, that was her update. And then with the second journey, we just talked in general anyways, every single day. So they always had an update.
Okay. And then once you deliver, I'm assuming they're there for that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so my intended fathers came from Spain around my 20-week sono, maybe a little bit earlier than that, and stayed for a weekend. And then they came back around 38 weeks of pregnancy. Okay. And they were local to me, stayed at like a Airbnb up and through delivery and through passport and all of that. And so they came for the delivery. They did not make it because they went so fast, but they were on their way when it happened. So, and then with my first set, they were there too. Everybody, they come for the delivery.
Okay. So questions for you on a more personal, like, how does your family handle all of this, if you're okay talking about it?
Sure.
Like, how did they feel about this? Mom holding a baby, carrying a baby, but then when the baby's born, the baby's not ours. And I think your children were, well, no, you had your littlest one, you said you were still breastfeeding.
Yeah. So I stopped breastfeeding. So he was 2 with my first journey.
Okay.
And so then about 4 with my second. And then Riley was 4 with my first, and then 6. So when the first person I talked to obviously is my husband, who was like a little bit worried just because we had this beautiful home birth and we both felt very, very connected to our baby, more than all the others, just because of the way he was born. And so I think he was most nervous about like how I was going to feel emotionally. Was I going to be connected to this baby? Was I going to be sad? And once we talked about it and talked about that it wasn't our genetics, wasn't going to look like our baby, we're planning for it, naming it, any of that, he was more open. And then we met the intended parents, and I remember leaving dinner because we had dinner with them, and we walked out. He's like, how could we not do this? Like, he was just like, what? How could you not help them? So every time I went to do it after that, because there was a third time that almost happened, but then COVID hit, and then our timelines did not add up once the world opened back up. But every time after that, it was just like, it's your body, your choice, whatever you want. Right. My kids, I don't know. They were a little bit younger. My youngest, Finn, for my first journey, had no idea. He was 2. He didn't really know. Right. He didn't really care. My other ones were a little bit more into it, but we just, from the very beginning, were open and honest. I mean, I'm a midwife and I breastfeed and all that, and my kids see it. They know it. Like, right. Birth and all of this is nothing weird or right. Different to them. So they just knew from the very beginning that it was these parents' baby, and this is why, because she was sick and she didn't have a uterus anymore. And so she needed somebody who did to help her carry a baby. And so I do. And so I'm going to do it. And they were like, okay, we're not keeping this baby. It's theirs. That one was pretty easy too, because she was always around. She went to the appointments, and if they came with me, they saw her. And the second time, it's a same sex couple. They don't have a uterus. That's why they need me. Right. And they were a little bit older then. So they, were able to process it, but they did great. They didn't have any problems. There's 4 of them. I don't think they wanted me to keep a baby. I think they were like, you're so cute, by exactly how I felt. Like, you're so cute. Okay, now I'm going to go take a nap. So yeah, there was no like feelings. I never saw anything come up that, we were very open from the beginning. And when both babies were born, they all held the baby, except for my oldest. He wasn't he was, gosh, I'd have to do the math backwards, and I'm not going to try, but he was a teenager for both. Right. And just not as into it, and just kind of like, okay, that's whatever, do you. We didn't talk too much. I think he thought it was probably a little bit weird back then. Now I think he thinks it was a, nice thing to do, but still probably a little bit weird. But yeah, my other kids, my 3 youngest ones, they all held the babies, both of them. And that was that. And the babies went home with their parents, and there was, we still talk about, in fact, the funny thing is that they haven't seen either of them since they were babies. Okay. And so they refer to both of them as, it's Joelle and Eli are their names. And so they're still baby Joelle and baby Eli to them, even though they're like, almost like 7 and 5, but they're always in my kids' heads going to be babies, because that's what they know of them. Yeah. Even though we see pictures, we get tons of updates and we see pictures and everything. But yeah, they've been, in fact, I always tell a story about my daughter, because after the first journey, you get tired of saying that you're a surrogate. So when people are like, is this your first? It's like, no, but you just don't get into anything. My first year, I was like, no, I'm a surrogate. This is what I'm doing. Second time, I was just like, I'm not saying anything. And so my intended fathers, they were in Spain, and they delivered some baby stuff to our house from Amazon. They just, had it ordered off there. The UPS guy came, and it was an open packaging, and my daughter was playing out front. He's like, oh, are you having a baby brother or baby sister? And she's like, brother. And she came in and she goes, I just did not want to explain that whole situation. And she wasn't, maybe like 10 or 11 years old, but even she knew, like, I'm not getting all that with the UPS guy. So they even, it was just, I don't know. I think they just think it's normal. They probably think most people do this. Right. Just like they think babies are supposed to be born at home. Like, they don't know people have babies. Well, they do know people have babies in hospitals, because I have clients that occasionally have to deliver there, and, but that's like that, they don't know that that's standard. Right. Standard to them is a home birth. So they probably think that standard is that you have babies for other people when you're done with your own families. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I was going to say, you may have to let your daughter know as she gets older. You don't have to.
You don't have to. You have body autonomy. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But it'd be nice if you did.
Yeah. And How did you feel? I know you said that you knew, like, from the get-go, this wasn't yours to keep, but I would imagine that that whole experience is very emotional. I mean, I wouldn't imagine. I've been there.
Right.
I understand how emotional that whole experience of delivery is. How was that? Was it a little bit hard to let
No.
go? No, it wasn't at
Nope.
all. No.
No, it's actually easier than I expected.
Okay.
My first journey, just because there was a lot of unknowns, I was nervous about it. I was nervous about not going into labor because I was going to be worried about like holding on to this baby. And so I talked a lot with my midwives about those fears so that we wouldn't get in a situation, because I do tend to carry my babies forever. And I didn't want to get in a position where we were going to lose out on our home birth, or we're going to have to do an induction or anything like that. But no, I didn't. I was really satisfied and felt it was really seeing my intended parents with their babies for the first time rivaled me seeing my own babies for the first time.
Okay.
It was incredibly rewarding. I loved it. Anything that I would have felt, I think, was just washed away seeing my intended mom, especially. I was so happy that was my first journey. I mean, my intended fathers, then with they're just amazing. But seeing her, so a woman who had struggled for so long and go through so much at such a young age, to have her baby, seeing her hold her baby was like, I still can't barely talk about it without tearing up. And I mean, just so emotional. And I just felt so honored to have been a small part of helping her become a mom.
Right.
So there was no sadness. No, the only hard part was, you still kind of look pregnant after you have a baby for a while. And
right.
So looking that way, but not actually having a baby with me, that was a little bit, and I think a lot of surrogates say that. That's kind of, I just have a friend who just delivered her third surrogate baby, and she's like, cue the tears for being fat, but not because I'm postpartum, but like, am I? It's like, right. But yeah, you are.
Yeah.
So I think that was the hardest, is this, your body thinks that there's supposed to be a baby there, and your body looks like there was a baby there, but there isn't. So that was kind of a little bit harder to reconcile. But as far as like emotionally, no, I felt really, so good about it. I did it again, and then I was going to do it again. No sadness. And when my intended fathers left to go back to Spain, I was really sad. But never about the baby. I mean, like, it was sad to see him go. He was so cute. Oh my God. He still is. He's even cuter now than he was when he was born. But it was just the seeing my intended fathers go. They were so far away. I knew I probably wouldn't see him for a long time. And it's been 5 years since I've seen him. So that was like the hardest part, I think, was just, that relationship changing with the intended parents. And I would say most surrogates will tell you the same thing. It's the change of like talking to your intended parents all the time, and now all of a sudden it's not as often because they have a baby to take care of,
right? And
they're busy, and now their journey's just begun. So yours is over and theirs is beginning. So yeah, that was like the only sadness was just knowing that relationship was going to change a little bit. I wasn't going to see them as often, but seeing them get their babies after waiting for so long and trying for a family for so long was like indescribable, and no sadness whatsoever about the baby. But also, this is why it's important for your family to be complete. So I didn't have a feeling of incompleteness in my own family.
Right.
And that's one of those things that we talk about when we're talking to potential surrogates is, that your family should be complete, because it does help, I think, in that sadness, or that could be sadness in the postpartum period.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned, like, once you had them, you are now dealing with all, the body is not going back to normal, things are slow moving back to normal. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I remember for myself, that was for me, it was very uncomfortable. I know you love pregnancy and everything with it, so you probably maybe didn't feel as uncomfortable about it, but with like the letdown and everything, do they provide you with something? Like, how did that all transpire? Like, do you just go through that whole experience of breastfeeding, or do you?
Yeah. So for everybody, that's different. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's just different. So, well, first of all, I do actually love postpartum. I think the freshness and the newness I love that, because it just means there was new life. And so I think that's such a special thing. And so I actually do like postpartum. I don't love postpartum body, but when you have a newborn there, it's kind of different. And especially because you are nursing all the time. So it's helping the uterus go back, and your body, it just helps your body get back faster.
And you have this little person there.
Yes.
That's where I'm kind of like, oh, I can't imagine not having
that was the hardest, is this like the more like body image, I think, was hardest for me. Like I knew I did something really amazing and everybody was telling me I did something really amazing, but it was a weird area to be, because you don't have a baby that you're taking care of, but yet you are postpartum, and so you need to be taking care of yourself and not trying to go exercise and do things to get your body back right away, because you still need to be treating it properly. So that was difficult. As far as breastfeeding and all that, I did pump for my first surrogate baby for 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then they were local to me, and they moved to Florida to be close to family. And so there's just going to be a lot with shipping and all that. I'm not a great pumper anyways, and I don't get a lot, and I'm not really all that committed because I don't really like it. But I did commit to 6 weeks at least for him, and I did do that. And then I nursed my second baby. Well, actually, I nursed both of them. I nursed my first one after delivery.
Okay.
Until we parted ways after 6 hours or so. And then I nursed my second surrogate baby, same thing, like that immediate postpartum period. And then I saw them a couple times, like for our postpartum follow-up 2 days later, and I nursed him again then. And so usually when I saw him, I would nurse him, but I also was pumping for him. And then I pumped for the first few weeks for him. He left 2 weeks after. Okay. And then everything else that I had, I donated to one of my clients' babies who was born at 35 weeks.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, sweet. So now I can give her milk. Because I don't pump really all that often, I was kind of doing it on my own schedule when I felt like I could. And when it was convenient, I didn't have a ton of milk to dry up, but had I not nursed in either of them, had I not planned to breastfeed either of them or pump for them, then I would have just done, the things that you do to try to stop milk production.
Right.
So yeah, that was actually the easiest part for me. I felt like was just give it, because it was still like a part of the journey. So I was like, oh, I can still pump and give them a little something. And it's milk that's made specifically for them. So I liked that. It was like a nice little transition. And then I was really happy when that transition was over and I could stop pumping and I was done providing everything for this adorable little human life. But it did also help kind of like transition from being pregnant but not having a baby, once I had delivered.
Right.
So yeah, that was a lot of words.
It's amazing.
Really terrible explanation.
I can't believe, that truly is giving of yourself more than, how selfless, like I can't even imagine. I don't, kudos to you. 'Cause that's, I can't imagine that act is, it's amazing that you were willing and able to do that, because I would imagine not, obviously not a ton. I don't know how many people are willing to go on that journey, but I would imagine it's not a huge amount.
It's not enough, that's for sure. For how many people need help having a baby, there's definitely not enough who are willing and that are also qualified. So with somebody I work with, Haley, she's on my team, and she said once there's like, this many, and just did her hands really far apart of people who need help having a baby. And then she brought them closer, and she's like, there's this many who are willing. And then she brought them, right together and said, there's this many that are actually qualified to be able to do it. And it's so true. Right now, intended parents wait at all the various agencies, sometimes years, to get a surrogate to help them have their baby. So it is not a lot of us. I feel like there is, because I know so many surrogates. I feel like, but I know hundreds of them. So there's a lot more, I think, than people think there are. Right. I think there's, they say there's at least 1,000 babies born from a surrogate every year in our country. So there are a lot of surrogates.
Yeah.
It's just not that many comparatively. But I don't know. I never feel like I'm amazing for doing this. I feel like it was amazing that I was given this opportunity, because I don't know if I could trust a stranger to carry my baby for me.
Right.
And, lose all like decision making when it comes to what they're eating and what they're doing and how they're giving birth and where they're giving birth and who they're choosing as their provider. And so it's a lot of trust to put in somebody. So I just feel honored that 3 really different families chose me to do that. So I'm like, thank you for entrusting me with like your greatest like commodity and thinking that I was a trustworthy person to do this. So, which I was, I think I did a good job. They turned out really good. I have no it's nothing to do with me how cute and smart they both are.
Right.
But I did grow really healthy. So I'm like, that has to do with me. They came out super healthy. So yeah,
of course it does.
All the other stuff is their parents.
Right.
All the cuteness and smartness is all of them. But maybe it was all that potato salad I ate. I don't know. Just kidding.
Okay. So what would you like if someone is interested in becoming a surrogate or just learning more about surrogacy? Where should they come to from you?
Yes. So I am always open to discussing surrogacy. I'm very, very passionate about it. It's something that I could talk about day and night, which I think I pretty much do. So they can find us. I work at Fairfax Surrogacy. So they can find us at fairfaxsurrogacy.com. They can email me at staylor@fairfaxsurrogacy. They can find me on Facebook. They can message me. They can call me. They can text me. I am willing to. They can find me on Instagram, wherever. I'm always willing to talk about surrogacy through any form of any way anybody wants to. Like I mentioned, there are so many more intended parents at this time than there are surrogates. And so if anybody's ever thinking about, is this for me? I am happy to have a nice long conversation to decide. It doesn't mean because you reach out that you want to become a surrogate. Maybe you just need more information. You want to know, what are those qualifications? What are the steps? What's the timeline? What's this process really like? Because I can talk about my own experience and the emotional side of things all day long, but there are some real timelines, and there's a lot of protocols, like I discussed, about fertility clinics and legal and travel, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes into being a surrogate. So I'm always happy to explore if it's the right decision for somebody to make. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking time out of your
Yes, time. Of course. I love it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. I hope you found this information valuable and hope that you are able to begin using some of the tips that were provided immediately. Make sure to check out the show notes for all the links that we discussed today. As a mom myself, I understand that at times you can feel alone and are looking for a sense of community. I hope that we are able to provide that for you. Make sure to join us over in our free Facebook community, Moms Raising Healthy Humans. We also offer 3 tiers to our program where you can do daily movement snacks with a calendar. You also have opportunities to check out our membership portal where we have weekly workouts that you can do. And then we also provide Zoom classes where you can work out with us live. We try to do something for everyone so that all people feel that they can find an opportunity to move more, find a supportive community, and live healthier lives. I hope to meet you soon, and as always, feel free to reach out to me with any questions you might have. You can find us at formfitonline.com. And as always, keep moving.